If you told me a month ago that I'd be sharing a cabin with my straight best friend for a week and questioning everything I thought I knew about him, I would have laughed. But here I am, staring at the ceiling of a room that smells like pine wood and old flannel, wondering what the hell just happened tonight. Let me back up. Jason and I had been best friends since high school. He was the golden boy, tall, lean, athletic, full of that effortless confidence that made everyone gravitate toward him. I was quieter, more of a behind-the-scenes guy. While Jason was playing varsity soccer and flirting with half the school, I was the kid editing the yearbook and secretly crushing on him from a distance I hoped he'd never notice. We stayed close after graduation, even as life pulled us in different directions. I moved to the city, started working as a junior video editor for a podcasting company. Jason stayed local, managing a hiking gear shop his uncle owned. We didn't see each other as much, but we always checked in. Memes, quick calls, a few weekends here and there. Then, a few weeks ago, he texted, "You free the second week of October? I'm going up to my uncle's cabin. You need a break. Come." I almost said no. Work was a mess, my apartment lease was up in 2 months, and my anxiety had been on a slow boil for weeks. But something about the way he said it, like he just knew I needed air, I caved. So here we were. The drive up was easy. 4 hours of music, snacks, and stupid debates over which era of pop punk was superior. When we pulled up to the cabin, it was already dusk. The place looked exactly like I remembered it from one weekend years ago. Weathered siding, creaky porch, tall pines crowding the sky. Jason did all the usual guy stuff. Chopped wood, shirtless like we were in a cologne ad. Fixed a leaky pipe under the sink. Grilled steaks like it was his personal religion. I mostly watched. Not in a creepy way. Okay, maybe a little. But it was more than that. He had this energy lately. Less goofy, more thoughtful. He'd catch me watching him, and instead of teasing like he used to, he'd just look back. Hold it. Like there was something unsaid between us, and neither of us wanted to break it open. The third night, the tension cracked. We'd been playing cards by the fire, half drunk on whiskey and nostalgia. Jason leaned back in his chair, legs sprawled, eyes half-lidded, and said, "You ever think about how different life would be if you'd told certain people how you felt earlier?" I blinked. "You mean like regrets?" "Not regrets, just different timelines where you said something instead of keeping it in." His gaze was heavy, direct. I felt my stomach twist. "I guess," I muttered, staring down at my cards. "Sometimes it's safer to keep things quiet." Jason nodded slowly. "Yeah, but silence doesn't stop it from being real." We didn't talk after that, just sat there, the fire crackling between us, the silence louder than any words. Eventually, we crashed. Separate rooms, of course. I thought that was the end of it, just one of those weird late-night moments you forget by morning. But around 2 a.m., I woke up. Not because of a sound, just a feeling. I sat up in bed, the room pitch black except for the faint glow of moonlight leaking through the window. That's when I noticed the door to my room wasn't fully shut. I was sure I'd closed it. I pushed the blanket off and patted over to close it, but before I could, I saw Jason in the hallway, shirtless, just standing there. His hand was on the frame like he'd been about to knock. We stared at each other. "You good?" I whispered. He hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, couldn't sleep." "Same." A pause. Then, before I could overthink it, he stepped into the room. "Mind if I—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I stepped back, gave him room. He sat on the edge of the bed like it was the most normal thing in the world. Then he lay back, head hitting the pillow next to mine. We didn't speak. Not for a long time. Just lay there, our shoulders inches apart, the silence thick enough to chew. I could hear his breathing. Steady. Calm. Mine? Not so much. Then, barely a whisper, he said, "Do you ever think about me?" My heart thudded. Like, what kind of thinking? He turned his head toward me. I could feel his eyes even in the dark. "You know what kind," I swallowed. My mouth was dry. "Yeah." "Do you?" I nodded, my voice barely audible. All the time, Jason exhaled. Not a sigh, more like relief. Good, he said. Then his fingers brushed mine under the blanket, and I didn't move away. His fingers didn't move again. They just rested there, gently touching mine under the blanket like he was testing the water, waiting to see if I'd pull away. I didn't. I couldn't. My body felt frozen and burning at the same time. The room was quiet except for the soft creak of the ceiling fan and our breathing. Jason, I started, my voice cracking halfway through his name. He didn't look at me, but his fingers curled slightly, linking with mine. Yeah? He said, voice low. What are we doing? He let out a long breath, like he'd been holding it in. I don't know, he said. I just know I didn't want to sleep alone tonight. Not when you were in the next room. That shouldn't have meant anything. But it did. Because Jason wasn't the type to say things just to say them. He didn't play games. That was never him. I shifted slightly, turning onto my side so I could face him in the dark. He stayed on his back, eyes focused on the ceiling, his jaw tense. You're straight, I said quietly. It wasn't a question. More like a fact I needed confirmed. We're contradicted. He nodded once, slowly. I thought I was. I waited. He turned his head, finally meeting my eyes. But lately, with you, I don't know. Something feels different. My heart was pounding. It felt surreal, hearing that from him. Jason, the guy I'd silently crushed on for years. The guy who dated girls without ever questioning it. Now lying in my bed, fingers wrapped around mine, saying this. This doesn't have to mean anything, he added quickly. I'm not asking you for anything. I needed to be close to you tonight. That sentence did something to me, not in a dramatic fireworks way. It was quieter than that. He wasn't here to confess love. He wasn't here to label himself. He was just here. Honest. Raw. A little scared. And I'd never wanted someone more. I nodded slowly. Okay, I whispered. You're here. That's enough. He gave me a look I couldn't quite read, something between gratitude and guilt, then closed his eyes, still holding my hand. That's how we fell asleep. When I woke up the next morning, sunlight was slipping through the blinds, casting strips of gold across the room. Jason was still there, still on his side of the bed, but our hands were no longer touching. He was on his back again, breathing slow and steady. For a second, I thought I'd dreamt the whole thing. Then I saw the slight furrow between his brows, the way his hand twitched slightly, like it was reaching for something, or someone. I sat up, careful not to wake him. My head was a mess. Part of me wanted to crawl back under the blanket, wrap myself around him, and pretend we were something we weren't. Part of me wanted to run. Instead, I stood and grabbed a hoodie from the chair, padding quietly out to the kitchen. I made coffee, poured 2 mugs, and tried not to look like I was overthinking every second of the night before. Which, of course, I was. I was staring blankly out the window when Jason walked in. Hair messy, shirtless, wearing only a pair of old basketball shorts that hung dangerously low on his hips. He saw the mugs on the counter and gave me a small smile. You made coffee? I nodded. Didn't know if you'd want any. He grabbed a mug, took a sip, and leaned against the counter. For a moment, we just stood there, the hum of the fridge filling the space. So, about last night, he said finally. Here we go. I braced myself. Jason scratched the back of his neck, avoiding my eyes. I meant what I said. I don't know what this is, or what it means, but I'm not sorry it happened. I nodded, heart thudding. Okay. I know that's not enough, he added quickly. I'm not trying to mess with your head. If you need me to back off, just say so. I shook my head. No, I don't want that. He looked at me then. Really looked. Are you sure? He asked, like he needed to hear it again. I'm sure. He took a step closer, then another, until he was right in front of me. Jason wasn't a hesitant person, but in that moment, He moved like someone who knew they were on thin ice, like he didn't want to spook me, or himself. He reached up slowly, cupping the side of my face. "I don't know what I'm doing," he whispered, "but I want to figure it out. With you." And then he kissed me. It wasn't perfect. His lips were slightly chapped. We bumped noses, but it was real, warm, unsteady, like someone letting themselves fall without knowing where they'd land. When he pulled away, we were both breathless. "Okay," I said again, voice shaking a little. "We'll figure it out." After the kiss, neither of us moved. Jason's hand was still on my cheek, warm and solid, like he wasn't ready to let go just yet. And honestly, I didn't want him to. But at the same time, I could feel 100 thoughts pressing at the edge of my brain, all of them fighting for attention. Was this real? Was this just the cabin, the isolation, the whiskey the night before? I stepped back slightly, needing air, space, something to break the intensity. Jason dropped his hand immediately, like he thought he'd gone too far. "Sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to." "Stop," I interrupted, holding up a hand. "Don't do that thing where you pretend it didn't happen." He shut his mouth, nodded. We stood in the kitchen, 2 mugs of coffee going cold on the counter, morning sun cutting across the floor, and all I could think was how surreal this felt. Not bad, not uncomfortable, just new, fragile. "I'm not freaking out," I said finally, needing him to hear that. He gave me a small, crooked smile. "You look a little like you are." "Yeah, well," I exhaled. "It's a lot." "I get that." Jason took a step back, giving me some space, and reached for his coffee like we were suddenly just roommates again. The shift in his posture was immediate. Too casual, too normal, like he was trying to put the moment back in a box. I hated that. And I hated that I kind of understood it. We didn't talk about it the rest of the morning. Instead, we went for a hike, like we'd planned the night before. Packed some snacks, filled our water bottles, and headed into the woods surrounding the cabin. The trail was steep in places, muddy in others, and usually Jason would fill the silence with dumb commentary or jokes, but today he was quiet. Thoughtful. At one point, when we reached the overlook, a spot where you could see the whole valley below, yellow and orange leaves just starting to turn, he finally said, "Do you remember that night after senior prom? When we crashed in your basement?" I blinked, thrown by the change in topic. "Yeah. You let me have the couch, and you took the floor." I chuckled. "You had a sprained ankle. You couldn't even bend it. What was I gonna do, make you sleep on hardwood?" Jason nodded, still looking out at the view. "You didn't say anything, but I saw you staring at me that night. I was pretending to be asleep." My heart stuttered. "What?" "I don't know why I remembered that today," he said, voice even. "Just did." I didn't know what to say, so I stayed quiet. "It wasn't a big deal back then," he added. I always knew you looked at me different. I never said anything, because I didn't want to lose what we had." "Thanks for bringing it up 8 years later," I said, trying to joke, but my voice was too tight for it to land. He turned to me then, and his expression was unreadable. I guess I'm saying I've known. And I didn't mind. That hit me harder than I expected. We didn't talk much the rest of the hike, but that night, after dinner, after we'd both showered and changed into sweats, we ended up back on the couch. The fire was going. A movie neither of us were really watching played in the background. Jason stretched out across the couch, his legs long and loose, his hoodie slightly unzipped to show the edge of his collarbone. I sat at the other end, sipping tea I wasn't tasting. Eventually, he shifted and looked at me. "You don't have to treat me like I'm made of glass." "I'm not. You kind of are." I looked at him. "This isn't easy for me." "You think it's easy for me?" he asked, eyebrows raised. "I kissed you this morning and spent the entire day wondering if I'd messed up 10 years of friendship." "You didn't." "Good." Then, after a pause, "So what now?" That was the question, wasn't it? What now? What do you do when the guy you've quietly loved forever kisses you one morning and then asks, what comes next? "I don't know," I admitted. "We don't have to figure it out all at once." He nodded. A beat passed. "Can I sleep in your room again?" he he asked, like it was the most normal thing in the world. I smiled. You're not gonna sneak in again? Nope. This time I'm asking. Yeah, I said. You can. That night, we lay in the same bed again. Only this time, I didn't fall asleep wondering what he was thinking. This time, I knew. That night, when Jason climbed into bed beside me, it was different. We didn't talk. We didn't touch. Not right away. But the silence between us wasn't awkward. It was thick with tension, with all the unsaid things we were slowly learning how to say with our bodies instead of words. I was lying on my back, eyes wide open in the dark, when I felt the mattress shift. Jason turned toward me, his arm brushing mine. I didn't move. A minute passed. Then another. And then, quietly, cautiously, he let his hand rest on my stomach over the blanket. Not pushing, not pulling me in. Just being there. Testing space again. I keep thinking this'll feel weird in the morning, he whispered, his breath warm near my shoulder. But it doesn't. It just feels like I'm finally not ignoring something. I turned my head toward him, eyes adjusting to the faint glow coming in from the window. You're not scared? He was quiet a moment. No. I'm more scared of not doing anything. I exhaled through my nose. I've been scared of this for years. I know. He shifted closer, his head on the pillow beside mine now. You don't have to be scared with me. There was something about hearing that from him that cracked something open in me. So I reached up, slowly, and let my hand rest on the side of his neck. My thumb brushed the edge of his jaw. His eyes fluttered shut, like it was the first real touch he'd let himself feel all day. I don't know where this goes, I said. Me either, he replied. But I'm here. That was enough. That night, we didn't kiss again. We didn't do anything we couldn't take back. We just fell asleep like that. Limbs tangled, breath sinking, silence finally soft instead of loud. The next morning, we both woke up at the same time. It was strange waking up with his body still pressed against mine. His arm had found its way around my waist sometime in the night. Our legs were tangled like we'd done this 100 times before. When I shifted slightly, he didn't pull away. He just tightened his arm. Morning, he said, voice low and sleepy. Morning. He didn't say anything else, just held me for another minute. Then, like a switch flipping, he sat up and scrubbed a hand through his hair. I'm gonna make pancakes. Pancakes? Yeah, cabin tradition. You always wake up earlier than me, but today I beat you. So I win. Pancakes? I laughed. That's not how traditions work. Don't care. You're getting pancakes. I stayed in bed while he moved around the kitchen. I could hear the sound of the fridge opening, the soft click of the stove, the sizzle of butter in a pan. And through it all, this strange feeling sat in my chest. Warmth. Hope. But also something sharper, like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. By the time I made it into the kitchen, Jason was flipping pancakes like he'd done it 100 times. He looked over at me and smirked. Coffee's hot. Mug's on the counter. I poured myself a cup and leaned against the sink, watching him. You ever cook breakfast for anyone else? Nope. Not even girls you've dated? He shrugged, eyes on the pan. Didn't stick around long enough for breakfast. I raised an eyebrow. He flipped the last pancake, plated it, and turned to face me. You think I'm messing with you? He said. I can see it on your face. I don't know what to think, Jason. You're not exactly known for your emotional availability. He winced. Fair. I sighed and sat at the table. I'm not asking you to figure everything out in a week. But I need to know this isn't just some weird cabin fantasy you're going to forget when we go back to real life. Jason brought over the plates and sat down across from me. It's not just the cabin. You sure? He met my eyes. I've been thinking about this for months. I just didn't know how to say anything. I blinked. Wait, months? He nodded. You came to visit in August, remember? Stayed the weekend? Yeah. You got out of the shower and were walking around in that dumb towel, and I had to literally walk out of the room because I was losing my shit. That was when I knew something was up. I laughed despite myself. So it was the towel? Kind of, he admitted with a grin, but also how easy it was to imagine you staying. Like, long term. Not just for a visit. That hit me in the chest. You've really been thinking about that? Every damn day. I didn't say anything. Just picked up my fork and stared at my plate. Jason reached across the table, his fingers grazing mine again. Whatever this is, he said, I want it, even if I don't have all the right words yet. I looked up at him, and just like that, the fear cracked. The rest of the day felt weirdly normal. After pancakes, we went down to the lake, hiked around the far side of the trail, took a bunch of stupid photos we said we'd never post, and ended up lying on the dock, talking about everything but the obvious thing between us. Jason tossed pebbles into the water while I picked at the label on my bottle of beer. It should have felt awkward, or too loaded, but it didn't. It felt easy, like something had clicked, and neither of us needed to force anything, at least until later that night. We were sitting by the fire again, the same spot as the night he first climbed into my bed. This time, he was on the floor, leaning against the couch, and I was lying across it, one foot resting near his shoulder. He was scrolling through something on his phone, and I was half watching him, half watching the flames. Then he asked, "So what happens when we go back?" The question hung in the air like smoke. I sat up a little. Back where? Home, the city, your life, my life. I swallowed. I don't know. Jason turned his head, met my eyes. I mean, we can pretend none of this happened. Say it was just a weird little mountain moment. Is that what you want? No, he said quickly. God, no, I know how things get. I know me. And I don't want to mess this up by going back to pretending. I pulled my knees up to my chest, trying to form words around the knot in my throat. You think you'll regret it? Jason leaned his head back against the couch, looking up at the ceiling beams. I think I'll hate myself if I go back to the way things were and act like nothing changed. He was quiet for a second. Then, I don't want this to be some vacation version of me. I want you to know I meant it. All of it. I sat forward, my hand resting near his. Then don't make it a vacation version. Make it real. He looked at me again, his face softer than I'd ever seen it. You're saying that now, but in 2 weeks, when I'm busy with work and we haven't talked in days, then we talk about it. We figure it out. Jason didn't move, just watched me for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay. We stayed there like that, fire crackling, the room dim and warm and still. And then, slowly, he climbed up onto the couch beside me, laying back so we were side by side again. Hey, he whispered. Yeah? If this is a dream, don't wake me up. I smiled, resting my head on his chest. It's not, but if I'm being honest, part of me wasn't sure. The next morning, I woke up alone. For a split second, my chest clenched. That old fear, sharp and irrational screaming. See? You got too comfortable. But then I heard Jason's voice outside. I got up, peeked through the kitchen window. He was on the porch in flannel pants and an old hoodie, talking on the phone. His hand was running through his hair like it always did when he was trying to sound professional. Work, probably. Something with the shop. I made coffee. Waited. When he came back inside, he gave me a small smile and kissed the top of my head like it was something he did every day. You have work stuff? I asked. Yeah. My assistant's freaking out about inventory numbers. She wanted me to check something in the system. I'll deal with it when we're back. I nodded, trying not to overthink it. We spent most of that day quietly. Reading, packing a few things, cleaning up the kitchen. Jason wasn't acting different, exactly. But he was a little more in his head. Like reality was creeping back in, and he didn't know how to push it away anymore. That night, we built a fire again, our last one before heading back. Jason sat closer than usual, one leg draped over mine, fingers laced with mine like he was anchoring himself. I don't want to leave, he said. You say that every time we come up here. Yeah, but this time's different. I nodded. Yeah, it is. He leaned his head on my shoulder. Promise me something? Depends. If I freak out a little, if I pull away or get weird, just don't disappear, okay? I know I'm not good at this stuff. I know you've had time to think about it, to be ready. I haven't. I turned to him, squeezed his hand. Jason, I've waited years for you to meet me halfway. If you get scared, I'm not going anywhere. He exhaled, nodded, kissed my shoulder. Okay, good. That night was the first time we kissed without hesitation. No fear, no questions. Just need. And something else. Something like the start of something real. The drive home was quiet. Not in a bad way, though. Just full. Like neither of us needed to say anything to know we were both thinking the same things. We'd left the cabin clean, the fire ashes cold in the hearth, the key tucked back under the loose porch board, where Jason said his uncle always kept it. He looked over at me a few times while he drove. Small glances, nothing dramatic. His hand rested near the gear shift, fingers twitching like he wanted to reach for mine, but wasn't sure if that was allowed here. In the daylight, in the real world, away from firelight and blankets and whispered admissions in the dark. I didn't push it. We stopped once for gas, grabbed coffee and snacks at a roadside station. Jason joked about the smell of the bathroom, and I laughed maybe a little too hard just to make things feel normal. When we got back in the car, the silence settled again. An hour from the city, Jason finally said, "So, what now?" I looked over. You tell me. I mean, like, do we tell people? Do we just keep it between us? I took a breath, unsure how to answer. Do you want to tell people? He gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. I'm not ashamed. It's not that. I've never had to explain anything like this before. I don't even know what I'd say. You don't have to say anything right away, I told him. We don't owe anyone a label. Not yet. That seemed to settle something in him. He nodded. Okay, yeah, one step at a time. By the time we got back to the city, it was dusk. The skyline felt sharp after the softness of the trees. Our neighborhood buzzed with noise. Cars, sirens, someone yelling at their dog across the street. Real life, back in full color. Jason parked in front of my building and didn't turn the car off right away. He stared at the steering wheel for a second, then looked at me. You want me to come up? Do you want to? He gave a slow smile. Yeah, so he did. Being in my apartment with Jason felt strange at first. Like the space was too small for what had changed between us. He looked around like everything was slightly different. My kitchen, my couch, the pile of laundry in the corner, all the same stuff, but it felt different now that he'd seen me in a sleeping bag, in lake water, in silence. We sat on the couch, close but not touching, and put on something dumb to break the tension. We didn't really watch it. At some point, he reached for my hand again. And this time, I let myself lean in. He rested his head on my shoulder, eyes drifting shut. I miss this already, he said, barely above a whisper. We just got back. I know, but it already feels far away. I kissed the top of his head. Doesn't have to be. Over the next week, things weren't perfect. We didn't talk every second. He got busy with work. I had deadlines, but the rhythm was different now. At night, we texted more. Sometimes he'd call. A few times he came over. Once he stayed until morning, and we didn't even sleep together. We just talked, watched a movie, fell asleep on the couch like teenagers. The first time he kissed me outside, in the parking lot of a grocery store. He did it quick, eyes darting to see if anyone noticed. I didn't care. I just laughed, bumped his shoulder, and said, "You're smooth." He grinned, eyes crinkling. Don't pretend like you didn't love it. I did. And just like that, we had a rhythm. Messy, unclear, but real. I didn't need a label. He didn't need a speech. We just needed this, whatever this was, to keep feeling like it did when we were in that cabin. Like it was something neither of us expected, but somehow always knew was coming. A few weeks later, It happened. We were at a friend's birthday, one of Jason's old soccer buddies from high school. The guy had rented out the back of a bar. Nothing fancy, just cheap drinks and loud music and too many inside jokes being shouted across sticky tables. Jason hadn't told anyone about us. Not because he was hiding it, at least not in the way people usually mean, but because, I think, he was still figuring out how to protect it. How to protect us before letting the world have an opinion. But that night, as we stood near the bar, drinks in hand, someone made a comment. "Yo, Jay, where's your girl tonight?" Jason didn't flinch, just glanced at me, then back at the guy. "No girl," he said casually. "I'm seeing someone else." The guy raised an eyebrow. "Yeah? Who?" Jason didn't look at me, didn't make a big show, just took a sip of his beer, smiled, and said, "Doesn't matter. He's not really into crowds." The guy blinked, caught off guard, but didn't push, just nodded and turned back to his conversation. I stood there, stunned in the smallest way. It wasn't a declaration. It wasn't a speech. But it was something. Real. Unapologetic. When Jason finally looked at me, I didn't need to ask anything. I just smiled. And he smiled back. That night, we left early. Back at my place, we sat on the floor in the dark, surrounded by takeout boxes and shoes we'd kicked off in the hall. Jason leaned his head back against the couch and sighed like he was exhaling 2 decades of tension. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded. "I think I am." I nudged his leg with mine. "You surprised me tonight." He looked over. "In a bad way?" "No," I said, "in a way that made me want to kiss you on a pool table in front of half your high school friends." He laughed. "Don't tempt me. I'd never hear the end of it." We fell into silence again, but it wasn't awkward. It was the kind of silence people earn, the kind that doesn't need to be filled. Jason turned his head, eyes soft. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop." "What do you mean?" "I don't know, for you to get tired of waiting for me to catch up, or for me to wake up one day and realize I'm in over my head." "Are you?" He thought for a moment, then shook his head. "No, not even close." I leaned back beside him, letting our shoulders touch. "Then there's no shoe." Over the next month, things didn't get easier, but they got steadier. Jason wasn't the type to post couple selfies or make grand romantic gestures, but he showed up, he checked in, he listened when I needed to vent, made dinner when I forgot to eat, called me out when I spiraled about things that didn't matter. And I let myself trust it. I let myself believe it was real. Because it was. It's been 6 months now. We still don't have a label. But we have a rhythm. Jason crashes at my place most nights. He leaves his hoodie on my desk chair, his toothbrush in my bathroom. I have a drawer at his place. He keeps my favorite cereal stocked even though he hates it. Some nights, we talk for hours. Some nights, we say nothing. But we always end up in the same bed, legs tangled, breathing in sync. And sometimes, when I wake up before him, I just lie there and look at him. At this boy I used to watch from the other side of a soccer field. At this man who used to be my straight best friend. I still don't know exactly what we are. But I know what it feels like. And it feels like something I don't want to lose.